First, the first myth, so this is actually myth number 4, I guess, but number 1 for today is foods labeled natural are better. That's a myth, okay? So natural really doesn't mean much of anything. There is a definition, so let me kind of split these into two things, because there's one for meats, so there's one group that oversees meats, and then there's one group that oversees everything else, produce and everything else. But really this myth goes to show, the natural food myth goes to show how much companies will pour into making you think their food is healthy for you. Okay, so it's kind of sinister. So for meats, the USDA is in charge. Okay, their definition is any food that does not contain artificial ingredients or preservatives and is minimally processed. That sounds pretty good. That sounds natural. The problem is this is upon processing. So this is like after the food is, or after the animal is turned into food. So giving a cow hormones and antibiotics is okay. So doing anything to the cow itself is okay. It's after the cow is processed, adding stuff in is when they say, no, you can't do that. So the label is pretty misleading, because even though they might not do anything before, they might not give anything to the cow before, that doesn't mean that it's natural. Okay, so for meats, that one's a little bit kind of like iffy, like, okay, yeah, it's kind of a good definition. But the other half, which is most other foods, anything that's not meat, is the FDA. So these foods, their definition is of a natural food is any food in which nothing artificial or synthetic was added that would not normally expected to be in that food. Okay, it's super vague and it's entirely misleading. The reason it's vague is so that they can kind of put stuff in and change the rules and still fit the label. Okay, so it doesn't mean the food is not processed or manufactured in any way. It simply means you're not putting something in there that shouldn't be in there. Okay, so it doesn't mean it's better. Natural doesn't mean better. There's foods you can walk all around the grocery store and see foods labeled natural. It doesn't really mean all that much. There's also another label called all natural, which literally means nothing. So natural and all natural literally have no difference and mean nothing. Okay, so that's the first myth. The second myth is foods with a low-fat label are better. Now this one isn't as common anymore. This has been kind of understood as, hey, this isn't as pervasive as it used to be. But let's talk about what these mean. So reduced fat means a product that has 25% less fat than the same regular brand. Light means product has 50% less fat than the same regular product. And then low fat means a product has less than 3 grams of fat per serving. Okay, so let's talk about when this is good. When this is good is when you're looking at like a dairy product. Okay, so if you're looking at cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, milk, you can look at the label and understand, okay, so X amount of fat has been removed. So if say you're buying 4% cottage cheese versus non-fat cottage cheese. Non-fat cottage cheese has 0% fat. 4% cottage cheese has a lot of fat. They didn't do anything different to the product. They simply removed the fat, usually. Okay, so in this instance, that's really helpful. Cool, I can see that, calorie per calorie and gram per gram. This one, the one that has non-fat, has a lot more protein, has no fat. The one that has a lot of fat has a good amount of protein, but also has a lot of fat, more calories. When it's not a good thing is when they put it on like wheat thins. Okay, so for instance, wheat thins I looked up because this one I was like, it's wheats. What does reduced fat even mean in this instance? Because I've seen reduced fat wheat thins. So let's talk about most products that are come in a box are going to be like this. 1 cup of wheat thins, the original, 225 calories, 5 grams of protein, 35 grams of carbs, 8 grams of fat. Okay? The reduced fat, 221 calories, so 4 calories less, 5 grams of protein, so same amount of protein, 38 grams of carbs, so it has 3 more grams of carbs, and 6 grams of fat. So there's 2 grams less of fat. What this means is, because it only has 2 grams less of fat, they simply took some of the fat, because fat tastes good, out of it, and they put sugar in instead. Literally, they put 3 grams of sugar, and the calories and almost everything else is the exact same. The product is almost identical, except the one, instead of having fat, they said, this one has fat, this one's reduced fat, and we put sugar in it instead. It literally means nothing, okay? Fat tastes good, so when you're reducing fat, they're just going to put sugar in instead, because sugar tastes good. So that's the second myth, okay? And then the third myth is that organic foods are healthier. And this one I know is going to cause a little bit of a stir, right? Because organic is better. Organic's better because it's organic, right? So organic might be better for the environment, okay? It might be better overall for local farms. It might be better overall for supporting people that are doing the right thing in the world. In terms of health, there's not a difference, okay? There's been a lot of studies. There's been numerous studies that have shown that there's no health difference between an organic apple and a regular apple. And in fact, in terms of what it does for your body. But in fact, the pesticides that are used for organic products are not any more harmful than, or are the same amount of harm as regular pesticides. So regular pesticides are no more harmful than organic pesticides. That's just from research, okay? So there's no positive health link between eating only organic foods versus eating only non-organic foods at this time. I could say at this time, maybe that'll change in the future. But it is, if you care about the environment, okay, yeah, that can be better for you. But, don't think that you have to buy organic because it's healthier for you. If it's cheaper and it works for you right now, do that, okay? So hopefully that all makes sense. Foods labeled natural, not better. Foods labeled low fat, not better. Organic foods, not necessarily better in terms of health. It's all kind of misleading. So what should we start to look for? What kind of actions can we take from this? Read your labels, right? Because what it comes down to is if something's telling you it's healthy, it's probably not healthy. If something has to tell you what's in it, like I saw Cheez-Its. I saw Cheez-Its at the store the other day. It said, made with real cheese. As opposed to what, right? Like what else would you use? So keep that in mind when you're reading labels on foods. A lot of times they're telling you stuff on the front so that you don't look at the back. They're telling you, hey, look at this, look at this, look at that, so that you don't look around and say, oh, well, all you did was you put sugar in this instead of fat, so I'm going to put this to the side. Cool? All right, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 6 and 7 a.m., and Melanie will see you back here tomorrow at this time for a little mindfulness.